think the first thing that I look at is the Fields versus the quarterback to be conversation. And even just looking at Chicago's draft order, the picks that we have available to us, like what are some of your thoughts, I guess, moving, into the draft period, like those two considerations off the bat?
Yeah, so definitely Caleb Williams, Justin Fields. I think the Shane Waldron hiring was kind of smart. I think from Ryan Poles. I don't think it really tipped his hand too much because I feel like if he went with like a Cliff Kingsbury, like it's basically evident he's going to draft Caleb Williams. And that definitely might ruin like the trade value. I think of like Justin Fields and all that, but. Yeah, like it would have tipped his hand there, or if he picked like Greg Roman, then it's like, oh, he's definitely going Justin Fields. So I'm glad he didn't really tip his hand in that sense. And I think decent hiring. Like, it's not like the Seahawks were the most explosive offense. Under him, I think they were like bottom half in a lot of rankings. But I do like the aspect that he did kind of like resurrect or utilized Geno Smith's strengths more so of, which is like mind blown. Like utilize the talents of your players and the strengths that they have. So I did like that aspect, but yeah, it's not like they were completely explosive and just running up the scores against great defenses. So the other thing obviously is we don't have a defensive coordinator. So kind of solidifying that. I've heard Chris Harris, the former Bears safety there. I think it could at least show like what direction maybe they want to focus on more, whether it be the secondary, if they want to draft a safety, like that's could be something. If it is like Chris Harris or, maybe they go with somebody that has a defensive line experience. I think, my experience, at least my thoughts on that, maybe Chris Harris, really liked him as a player, but I don't know as much of a, coordinator. I think I just saw that they requested permission to interview the Bills, like defensive line coach. I might be up for that, Eric Washington, because I think their defensive line has performed really well and has developed young talent. And I'm like, great, we have a lot of that. So I'm much more in favor of having Eric Washington from the Bills there. And then, yeah, kind of relying on the young talent like the Javon Dexters, the Zach Pickens, developing those players, and yeah, maybe edge rusher as well, that we can pick in the draft here. So, but yeah, I guess Caleb Williams, Justin Fields, like, I don't know. I am still torn. I honestly think Ryan Poles is still torn, maybe. I know it's like, I don't know, like I see Twitter is like 70% Justin Fields, and I get the whole idea of building the team first, and then yeah, there's like that quarterback over there. But at the same time, like Caleb Williams, he's put on some really good numbers out there. He was like really good. I know they've tossed the generational quarterback, the best quarterback since like Andrew Luck out there. At the same time, I'm like, we got a lot of holes. I feel like, I don't know from the same situation. I think it's another thing too. Like, if we had a great offensive minded like head coach that has a history of developing young quarterbacks and stuff like that, and had a good system, I would feel much better, right? Like if like Andy Reid all of a sudden had the number one pick and didn't have Patrick Mahomes and stuff, like I would be like for it, but I don't know. There's a lot of question marks about. I feel like it's more so that mistrust about. I think Bears fans just have a lot of mistrust against the Bears organization as a whole, like developing quarterback talent, than more so of like Caleb Williams. And I think we take our anger out on Caleb Williams, like. Oh, he cries to his mom after losses. He paints his nails and stuff like that. He's too like, he's basically just not grinding like 24/7. It seems like he's like enjoying life, right? So yeah, like I don't think it's as warranted. I get the whole Justin Fields argument and everything there. Like we haven't set himself up for success. That being said, I think in my draft, I went the whole keep Justin Fields. Let's see what happens, and trade away the first overall pick for a haul. But Pat, what do you think? Are you on Team Fields, or are you drafting Caleb Williams, or Drake May or another quarterback? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm going to give you three quarterbacks in this player comparison that I'm just going to spit out right here. All right. Quarterback A had 40 in the and just to level set here, this is for the first 3 seasons of this quarterback being in the NFL, okay? Quarterback A had 45 touchdowns to 29 interceptions, 8,500 pass yards, 1,000 rush yards, 5 TDs, and their team went 12-25. Quarterback B had 42 touchdowns to 29 interceptions, 8,500 pass yards, 900 rushing yards, 8 touchdowns, and the team went 23-18. Quarterback C, 40 touchdowns, 30 interceptions, 6,600 yards passing, a little bit less than A and B, 2,200 rush yards, significantly better than A and B, 14 touchdowns, and the team went 10-28. So I guess when you hear A, B, and C, I know that was a lot of different numbers being thrown at a time, but did anything really stand out to you among, the three quarterbacks in that line right there?
Yeah, so I know three, or the third one, or C, is Justin Fields, right? If I'm correct, because I think I've seen
Yes.
those numbers. Yeah, I think I've seen that number a bunch of times, plenty of times, and I forget. Yeah, I remember seeing the comparisons too. I don't recall those A and B, those quarterbacks exactly, but I know they were kind of like quote unquote bust, or like mid level type of quarterbacks there, right? So. But yeah, I think at least from the Bears fan perspective, it's like, bad coaching, an offensive coordinator who is fired. And if you look at all the rankings of the interior, specifically, I want to call it specifically the interior offensive line. For whatever reason, like Ryan Poles didn't really solidify the interior offensive line. Like Nate Davis had, I think he was ranked like one of the worst, like one of the worst basically guards that played last season. And then Lucas Patrick, I think he was rated as like the worst center in all of football for pass protection at least. So like I don't know, those are pretty significant things there from a production standpoint. And I think everybody throws out like CJ Stroud a lot. About how he just progressed, like I called like, hey, they had nothing really, but at least you had good scheming. At least they had I guess a decent quarterbacks coach. How much of this is Justin Fields just like not progressing on his own? Like I've been critical about him. Like he needs to work in that pre-snap read. He needs to step in the pocket. Like these are like fundamental things, but I'm like, yeah, he hasn't been set up for success, and I think a lot of it is just coaching. Like I would have preferred clean slate, like cut off the arm, like let's start all fresh and new. And then maybe I would have gone Caleb Williams. But I feel like, if Ryan Poles is really gonna solidify on Eberflus, like might as well kind of stick it through there and just build the team. I think is what I'm thinking right now. Yeah, if Eberflus wasn't here, if he got fired after this season, which I was kind of in favor of, then I would be more open to Caleb, honestly. Like, if we brought in like a Ben Johnson, right, I would totally be open to Caleb, but not with these circumstances, I believe.
Yeah. So I guess of those three quarterbacks, you were right. C was Justin Fields. Quarterback A is Daniel Jones, and quarterback B is Mitch Trubisky. And when I look at those numbers and I just stack up those three quarterbacks, like they are pretty comparable when you look at their first 3 years in the NFL. I mean, Trubisky had, more winning teams. He arguably had more talent around him, etc. Daniel Jones, more in the passing game, a little less in the rushing game, but pretty similar to what Justin, accomplished in his first 3 years too. And I just think to myself, Daniel Jones right now is one of the most critiqued quarterbacks in the NFL based on the fact that he got, that max extension. He's working with one of the most, revered offensive minds, at least before last year, and Brian Dable to come in and kind of, start that anew. Obviously, he got injured. That's always going to be a huge part of it too. But, two quarterbacks that I think when you just, don't look at them on the field, you close your eyes and you kind of open your eyes to those stats, like that's the playing field that I think Justin's like established himself at just of now. In addition, you have Mitch Trubisky, obviously came in on different circumstances to the Bears. Since then, obviously went through his 3 with Chicago and then passed on to Buffalo, getting to back up Josh Allen, a much, better run team organization, gets passed over the Pittsburgh Steelers and has had opportunities to spot start. And, the thing I noticed is that even since he's left, similar to Daniel Jones kind of being in his 4th year going into year 5, it's like these guys haven't progressed. They've been passed off to different coordinators. They've been through different systems, at this point, and it's like we're not really seeing them turn up the Jets and things like that. I think everybody gets wowed by Justin's athleticism. I mean, his rushing ability is truly off the charts. But when it comes to passing, I think the thing that I got excited about in the draft was learning that he's an extremely accurate passer. He's like got pinpoint control, et cetera. And we've seen 30 picks, which was more than Jones and Trubisky in the first 3 years. And, I totally get it. The coaching sucks. The roster was pretty awful. But there's just been so much up and down in his game where, I think if he was to truly had balled out in the last, half of last season, I'd have felt so much better about this whole, let's just go into the Justin Fields mode and try to build around him and, kind of just give him what he's always kind of needed. But I think it's a very risky game to play because at this point, like, yes, you could probably get 2, 3 first rounders. Maybe, you never know what you could possibly get in a trade for the number 1 overall. But when I think about it, the more and more time has kind of gone by since, the season ended. It's like, I want a quarterback who is pass first, number 1. I don't want to be kind of in this game of a guy who's, more or less an athletic scrambler and we're training him how to pass in the NFL. I think that's like the thing that I don't want to see in terms of like where we're trying to go with development. And I know for all the things that we've kind of learned about Caleb and his quirkiness, like you mentioned, it's like, even if he does bring that quirkiness and whatever else it is, like, I'd love to just develop him from the get-go and like see how he can develop with all the skills that he's going to bring into this year, when it's like we've seen the the highlight reels of him making one-legged passes, across body passes, like throwing darts, different points of the end zone. I've seen some really crazy athletic things. I've seen him scramble to a point that's it's probably not Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields-esque, but maybe more of like a Patrick Mahomes. And, when you hear Cliff Kingsbury, who's had the opportunity to coach him, say that he's a better prospect coming out of college than Patrick Mahomes and Kyler Murray, I mean, that's incredibly high praise. And, you mentioned Andrew Luck and him being, maybe the most, anticipated quarterback to come out of the draft, maybe since Trevor Lawrence. But it's like, for Bears, like, we can't pass up on that, in my opinion. Like, we're an organization that just can't tolerate having good under center. Even if Justin Fields can get to good and be consistently good, I think we definitely need to shoot for great. And I think this would be, an absolute no-brainer for us. I think, a subsequent trade of Justin Fields, from a lot of speculation I've been hearing, it could net us at the very least a second rounder, maybe a second and another second or a third, to at the very best maybe a first rounder. I've heard Mel Kiper and others talking about, would it be Seattle? Would it be, the Falcons? Could it be, really anybody else who's kind of sitting under, in that first round, kind of looking, maybe it's the Raiders, just who's going to make that move, get really aggressive to go out and get a guy like Fields who, most do see the potential. But, when I matched up even Justin Fields with Lamar Jackson those first 3 years, it's like, it's not even close, man. It's like embarrassing how much better Lamar had it. Granted, he was with Baltimore, but an elite organization. But when I look at their numbers left to right, even in rushing yards, it's like Lamar had him beat. So it's like, I just don't think he's on the same playing field as Lamar, and I don't think that should be what we think of his upside as. I think if he can just be consistently good, mid-level type talent at quarterback, like, that's to me what I think his best case scenario is, kind of moving forward.
Yeah, no, that's a great breakdown there. The interesting part was that coming out of college, Justin Fields, like, nobody knew him as like a scrambling quarterback. Like, he kind of developed that, I think, in the NFL. I think, he's obviously athletic, right? But he kind of just evolved to be more of that scrambling, kind of create on the go quarterback, just because that's just how that was the hand he was dealt with, and he's kind of just owned it. So, but yeah, I think to your point, like I think that's that maybe where I'm maybe going or leaning towards. I think I heard a nice debate between like, do you build a great organization, a great, or just a great roster first, and then you put in the quarterback? Because I definitely see and look around. Like, yeah, you brought up the Baltimore Ravens and everything that they did. Like, yeah, like Lamar went into a great roster there. They were Joe Flacco wasn't really progressing that much, and they had a decent roster. I think they had maybe borderline losing seasons there too. But then yeah, they had Lamar Jackson. I think they traded up into the first round at the 32nd pick there, and yeah, they solidified it with like gave Greg Roman in there, and yeah, had a Super Bowl winning coach there to kind of help put together a roster and coaching staff to develop him. So, and yeah, the entire organization built the roster around him. The Bears organization hasn't, and I think that's the big thing is we suck at development. And if Caleb Williams really, this is an interesting discussion, right? And it would be an interesting test if Caleb Williams is this generational talent, right? That I think a lot of people are saying, then he's going to elevate basically, the talent that is going to be presented to him and bad play calling potentially. If that's the case though, like, I don't know why then we would just kind of beat around the bush. Actually, now I think about it, like, why don't we just like get Cliff Kingsbury? Like, hey man, come back to the NFL. You got this quarterback you say is honestly like, the best quarterback you've ever coached amongst, first overall picks, amongst, just a talented roster that you've coached and that's gotten you coaching gigs throughout wherever you've gone, basically. So, why not, be the offensive coordinator for the Bears? I think you've already been deemed as like not really going to be a head coach potentially in the future, but if you excel, like you're going to get another head coaching, I think, gig, maybe, after 2 years or something. So I don't know. I that's where I feel like the Bears, we've kind of been wishy-washy, and part of me thinks it's Ryan Poles trying to cover his ass. Like the reason why he didn't fire Eberflus was, in my opinion, more so because I think he was, from what I've read, like he was the one that hired him, or at least he's kind of just spoken highly of him. And hey, granted, like he did well with the defense, eventually kind of solidified that. But I'm like, where's all the money at right now? Like a lot of it's on the defense there, like especially if they re-sign Jalen Johnson. It's like Jalen Johnson, Montez Sweat, Billings, and then all the linebackers. Like, what have you done for the offense? Like, yeah, DJ Moore, like great. I just feel like they haven't positioned themselves fully that well yet, and yeah, I don't know. I feel like if we do get Caleb, we're not really going to be positioning himself well for success. Maybe I am with the cynical Bears fans a little bit about all that, and it's like, hey, let's just get a great player, and then maybe Baker Mayfield is still throwing it around her and can put up some good numbers here and there. I don't know what some other makeshift quarterback, so. And then, yeah, maybe develop, or maybe bring in an offensive-minded coach that has a history of developing, like another Andy Reid would be great, right? So, I don't know, yeah, maybe Sean McVay, like, kind of like says, I get tired of the sunny weather in LA, and Matt Stafford or something. I don't know what happens there, but I feel like there's just a lack of infrastructure for really any quarterback to succeed here, and I think that's just where the cynicism is for Bears fans, just in general.
Yeah, no, I mean it's fair. I think bringing in Waldron, like you were saying, it doesn't light the world on fire. You're not bringing over the offensive coordinator, of the Chiefs or the Bengals. If it was like the pinnacle offensive coordinator. Right. I'm trying to get to the point of like we all know that Shane Waldron isn't gonna be lighting the world on fire in most years. I think what he does bring though is really deep experience working under the Rams organization in their passing game before even going over to Seattle, and building a pretty stable offense with a guy like Geno Smith. Um, I mean, I think the thing that's going to be nice is if you do pair him with Caleb Williams, there's going to be a lot of just general, I would say, passing game experience with a handful of different quarterbacks who, Jared Goff, Geno Smith. I don't know if he had a year with Russell Wilson or Stafford, but in the same way, it's like this guy's worked with a lot of different quarterbacks, and he's going to be a massive upgrade over somebody who just worked for, Aaron Rodgers, who basically, could come without a quarterback coach and still be successful. It's like, I think he brings stability to the organization. He brings obviously a new look. We're trying to modernize ourselves and who we go after and attract as far as coaches go. I love the idea of Eric Washington off of Buffalo. I mean, an assistant head coach too, but also bringing in the experience he had with that really deep rotation of defensive linemen over in Buffalo and kind of all the success that they had. So like you continue to build in some new coaches with new perspectives. Like if we could work our way down the line. I think what I had read was a lot of the guys that we brought in to interview for the offensive coordinator role, it really wasn't about that. They were targeting Waldron for the OC role, and then every other guy they brought in was to be a specific position coach on the offensive side of the ball, which I thought was genius. I mean, I hadn't really heard much about that, coming out of Chicago in a very long time, but like you're saying, if Kingsbury would accept a role like the QB coordinator role, QB coach role, like that'd be awesome because Kingsbury did have 2 top 8 offenses with Arizona as a head coach. I mean, obviously it didn't really work out. Maybe he's not, cut out to be the motivator and the organizer for the entire team. But, I think anyone could look at him and say he's pretty successful at grooming, NFL ready quarterbacks in this game. So would love to bring him over. But I think one thing to push back on is like, I don't think that keeping the number 1 pick overall turns out that, we still can't have our cake and eat it too. I still think that the Fields trade will bring back a pretty good haul. I still think what we do in free agency will be pretty tactical and sharp. I think we'll leave some room for extensions for some of our key guys this year and, what they're able to build on, going into the future. But I don't think it's a situation where we don't pull the trigger on that number 1 overall pick trade and get another haul that we're, screwed moving forward. I think that, this team really impressed, I think, in the second half. I mean, really turned around the entire season, got them, to the brink of almost being a 500 team after starting off, as one of the worst teams in the first half. So like there's a ton that they're building on so far. I think that they are, you look at those core positions we need to fill. We bring in some NFL starters to guys that have incredibly high upside in those positions. Like we're starting to contend for the playoffs, starting next year, in whatever route we take it. I just think that Caleb changes that entire game. It takes away this idea that, there's stress that we need to go into the year not knowing how good our quarterback is going to be. I feel like he'll bring in what Fields could do, I think, in year 1 and kind of build off that going forward. That's how good I think he can be. I think he could be the CJ Stroud from last year. I think he could be, the Trevor Lawrence of a couple years ago, just in terms of what he can bring immediately to the team. So I'm excited about the potential of us just holding that pick and drafting him and having very cheap years of Caleb Williams ahead and being able to kind of supplement our team around the fact that we're paying a quarterback, a rookie contract, a star quarterback.
Yeah, no, that would be a dream for sure. If we are, hey, Shane Waldron, you can be the offensive play caller and everything, but yeah, Cliff Kingsbury, you be the passing game coordinator / quarterback coach here, and that would definitely get me excited because they're getting somebody with play calling experience, kind of coach and a history of developing quarterbacks and a history with a relationship with the first overall pick there. And yeah, if we're able to solidify that with, like a wideout and a very talented wideout draft, right? Like getting somebody there to pair up with DJ Moore. So, but I don't know. Yeah. I think it's kind of up in the air. Like it's just fun. I think that's the idea. We can go either way. and Bears fans are going to be mad no matter what. So and excited at the same time. But is Caleb Williams a better prospect, better overall quarterback than Justin Fields? Yes. I think he can read a defense. I think that's one, and like you're saying, he is accurate, and that's really what you want from a quarterback. So like I would I would definitely be on board if we get Caleb Williams. Yeah, I'm just concerned. That's all. Just a little concerned about what's going to happen there. And yeah, it is. We were close to some of those. We were close to being like a 10-7 team, right? Like we had 10-point leads in the fourth quarter and gave them all away. So whether we want to blame Eberflus or Getsy on that, or just Justin Fields too, right? That's definitely warranted, I think. But yeah, no, we're close. We're almost there, and we're just in a great position. So I feel like there's just a lot of things to look forward to, a lot of unknowns, but a lot of potential that I think could happen, for this team.
For sure. For sure. I'm excited too. I think in the last few weeks, I've started to, stray away from the idea of Fields, to be honest with you. And it's not that I don't think he can be a successful quarterback in the game. I just don't know how successful, and I don't know how we get him there, maybe starting immediately next year. Like, I just feel like he's a change of scenery guy at this point for me. I feel like he might be able to find that success, but I feel like it's going to be more predicated on his rushing attack than his passing game. And then I do worry about injury possibilities with a guy like Fields, because we've seen what happens, to scrambling type quarterbacks like an RG3. We could go down the line of guys who have had some major injuries that they maybe have a little bit more balance in the running game than in the passing game. So that kind of thing just, it worries me, especially with where, we drafted Fields. I agree with you. When we drafted him, I was so excited because I thought we have a guy who's super athletic, a pinpoint passer. We watched what he did in that CFP tournament, and it was pretty, impressive overall. So I was so happy when we grabbed Justin. So I think part of the thing for Bears fans too might just be that it's that you had this buy-in, and we finally kind of built like an emotional connection to a Bears quarterback. And I don't think in our entire lifetimes we had as close of a connection with a quarterback, as we had to Justin, to be honest with you. So it's like, just to move on, before we really know what he is. I think that the unknown is what's killing Bears fans. It's that we don't know. He could be the next coming of Lamar Jackson. He could be the next Trey Lance. We have no idea.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about it. I mean, this is like we're playing with riches, and we've never been really in this position. So I'm just excited for the draft to like kick off.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think Bears fans, they like the intangibles that I think that of Justin Fields. Like he fits the Chicago like aesthetic, or like our vibe basically. Like Caleb Williams is very much like more the California route or New York route, it feels like. And it's like I think that's where we have that affinity to Justin Fields more so of. So yeah, like just a hardworking, hard nosed, kind of stoic quarterback. I think that fits Chicago, I feel like. So that's definitely where, I think a lot of it has to do with that. And we see Caleb Williams, we see him like on GQ, videos and stuff like that. And it's like, that's not a quarterback. We want this guy that, just is always on an iPad, and, it has workout videos ever so often too, posting online. So I think a lot of it is just the likeness of Justin Fields there. So yeah, but I'm excited either way. It's going to be fun. So, looking forward to, I think, what Ryan Poles eventually decides here, though.